Welcome to another exciting episode of Inventor's Quick Tips. In this episode, we are going to be discussing a somewhat advanced topic, but I am going to do my best to break it down for you, and I will also be including some relevant links to other videos I have made for additional background if you choose to explore further. So you probably know that patents are legal documents and can be challenged in court, but there is another way that they can be challenged, and that is with the IPR. What is an IPR? It stands for Inter Partes Review, and that is legalese for a technique for some third party to challenge a patent that already issued. Here is a simplified cartoon to explain. Let's say we have Company A, and Company A says, hey, we make widgets, and we just got a patent, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, to issue on our widgets. By the way, that is not a number of a currently issued patent. It's just for our story here. Now Company B comes along and says, hey, we also make similar widgets like you, and we think your patent is bogus. Now Company B can do this on their own, but oftentimes Company B will say this after Company A tries to use their newly issued patent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 against Company B, say to try to obtain royalties or get Company B to stop making the product. Hopefully Company A wouldn't really say this, but if they did, they'd be somewhat misinformed to say the least, because Company B would likely challenge the validity of the Company A patent via the IPR, Inter Partes Review, at the Patent Board. The Patent Board is an organization that is part of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and the Patent Board handles IPR review. You can think of the Patent Board as being similar in nature to a federal court, but it is not the exact same thing as a federal court. By the way, federal courts, including the U.S. Supreme Court, can rule and have ruled on matters involving patents. Anyway, with that brief introduction, let's take a cursory look at a real-life example. And once we get through that, as always, I'll share a summary, and that will include some takeaways for small companies and independent inventors. So we have a challenge. It's going down. In the blue corner, we have Massimo Corporation, the patent holder. And in the red corner, we have the challenger, Sotera Wireless Incorporated. So let's go over a brief background of the circumstances of this challenge. The Massimo patent, RE37218, has to do with medical equipment for measuring blood oxygen levels. Now you might not be familiar with patent numbers that start with the letters RE. These are reissue patents. There is a mechanism by which, if a patent needs correction within a certain time window, the corrections can be made via a reissue process, where the patent gets a new number that starts with the letters RE. For the purposes of what we are talking about in this video, the reissue is not an important detail, but just to explain that in case you haven't seen that before. The fundamental concept in the Massimo patent is to measure blood oxygen level in a human using light. Here is an example of one for the fingertip, and there are other models as well. More specifically, the patent that is getting challenged pertains to preventing false alarms. I mean, we don't want the monitor to start beeping and panicking us if there is no cause for alarm. So the Massimo patent reduces the chances of a false alarm by adjusting certain thresholds over time. Sotera, our challenger, used a combination of pre-existing patents as an attempt to invalidate the Massimo patent. Note that patents don't have to belong to the challenger. They can just be documents that are known to exist prior to the effective filing date of Massimo. One of these patents was Bach. Bach had a similar technique for preventing false alarms, but it was for heart rate, not oxygen levels. Sotera then asserted another patent. Ironically, this patent also belonged to Massimo, but it can still be used as prior art. This patent did disclose pulse oximetry, measuring oxygen levels, and so on. So the Sotera assertion was that the claims were obvious based on Bach and Chiani. Section 103 of the patent law pertains to obviousness. Sotera asserts that the claims in question are obvious based on the combination of Bach and Chiana. Recall that Bach showed preventing false alarms in heart rate, and Chiani disclosed measuring oxygen levels. Sotera asserts it would be obvious to combine the teachings of Bach and Chiani and come up with what is shown in the Massimo patent RE47218. Now, if you need help understanding what claims are and what obviousness is, I will put a link to some videos I have on these topics in the description. Okay, so Sotera says it's obvious, but obvious to who? In order to determine what would be obvious, the standard is who would have ordinary skill in this art. In this case, the art is medical equipment, and who would have that skill, Sotera claims, and it seems reasonable to me, would be someone with a 4-year degree in something like electrical engineering or biomedical engineering. So we're not talking about a 4th grader, but hey, no disrespect meant to 4th graders. Some of those are extremely smart. But here, Sotera is saying that a normal biomedical engineer has skill in this field, and therefore that is the type of person who would think to derive the Massimo invention based on Bach and Chiani, which both predate the Massimo patent. Another key step for the IPR is interpreting the meaning of the claims. And here is the Claim 1 of the Massimo patent. And as you can see, it's pretty big. And the Sotera challenging team has to go through all the claims that they are challenging, line by line and word by word, to really spell out what they mean, and then compare it to the prior art, Bach and Chiani, and make a case as to why it's obvious. On the defense side, Massimo can mount a defense as to why it isn't obvious and why their patent is different than the combination of Bach and Chiani. The outcome is that the patent board invalidated the claims, and a federal court later affirmed that decision. The patent is invalidated. So just like with other legal battles, sometimes the challenger wins, sometimes the defendant wins, and sometimes there is a settlement reached as a compromise. There is a documentary that I reviewed previously called Invalidated, and I will put a link to that in the description, which outlines the story of an independent inventor going through this process. So what to make of all this, and what are some takeaways for independent inventors and small companies? Let's go through it. First, realize that a very, very small percentage of issued patents gets challenged in this way. I've been doing this for over 2 decades, and in all that time, only one of the applications I wrote ever got challenged in this way. When an IPR does happen, they involve patents that have significant commercial impact. Companies don't challenge patents that cover things nobody cares about. If an IPR happens, you can be pretty sure that the patent in question is valuable to somebody. And the main reason is that IPR challenges and defense of those challenges is very specialized work. Patent law is a specialized area of law, and IPR challenges and defense is a specialized area within the specialization of patent law. Typically, a firm that specializes in IPRs handles challenges and defense. And here is just an example from the case we just talked about. There are 76 exhibits, and the sum total of documents can be hundreds or even thousands of pages, including specialized analysis that takes many hours of people with high hourly rates to compile. The cost for an IPR challenge or defense could easily get into the 6-figure range or beyond. So what about patent application preparation? When we are writing a patent application, what is something we can do at that time to make a stronger patent that is harder to invalidate? One thing to consider is a range of claims. Claims in a patent typically start out as broad as possible and then get increasingly more specific. The more specific a claim is, the harder it is to invalidate. Of course, the trade-off is that more specific claims are also harder to infringe, meaning they are harder to use against a potential infringer. That said, the general wisdom is that a range of claims that cover the broad concept as well as specific details can be useful in preventing a complete invalidation. The IPR examines the patent on a claim-by-claim basis. So it is possible that, let's say, Claim 1 gets invalidated, but maybe Claims 2 and 3 do not. By having a range of different claim detail, it can help prevent a complete invalidation. Recall that up to 20 claims, with 3 being independent, are included in the basic filing fee for a United States patent application. So where possible, try to use all that is allotted and include at a minimum 20 total claims, with up to 3 of those being independent. So hopefully you found this video interesting. If so, please share, like, and subscribe. And thanks again for watching.